Okay, colleagues, thank you so much. I think we should start. The others will catch the train in motion. There's so much to discover and to discuss and to ask. I'm looking forward to tonight's session with Dr. J. Dear Mr. Entrepreneur. So this is how it's gonna work. I'm going to start with a few questions just to get the discussion going with Dr. J, and then please feel free to ask questions. Those who have been with us, the book club members, they know you need to switch on your camera if you want to engage in the discussion. I think it's only fair that we see who's behind the thing, the profile picture. So we will be starting. The idea is to finish at 8 o'clock exactly. And it's a safe space. There's some analogies in the book. I just kept on smiling as I was reading the book. So I'm gonna get to those. But this is about entrepreneurship, colleagues. I mean, the book club is, we basically read business books, preferably books written by local authors. If we can find them, they can join us. That will be even better. You are more than welcome to recommend the book as long as it's accessible and we can be able to read it. So we are recording the sessions. And if you feel that you rather don't want to see other people seeing your face, please type in your question and then we'll read it for Dr. J. So I'm very excited about the session. And yeah, thanks, Dr. J, for the work, for spreading the gospel of entrepreneurship. And as I was discussing the book with the guys, and some of them were very excited and they want to pick your brain on certain issues. And I'm also looking forward to picking your brain on certain issues. The idea is to share thoughts and experiences and stories. That's mainly the idea. Let's be real about this entrepreneurship thing, because for some reason, and I love what you have done in the book, it's been painted as if it's this rosy thing, you know, you just get in there and, you know, and it's from A to Z and voila, you know, but we know that that's not the real story. You know, there's more to this story than just what we have been told. And I'm very happy that you have done justice to that, to say it's actually not as the glitz and the glamour that we have sort of been sold to believe. So welcome, NG, Mr. Dipoko, Malisa Lamasejo. Thank you. I don't know who MC is, but I hope they'll enjoy it. Ntombi, Shama, from Botswana, all the way from Botswana. Chairperson Vina, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. We are highly honored. Angie also from GAPS in Botswana. So thanks, guys, for coming through. So what I'll do is, please, who has read the book by show of hands? Just show, you know, who has read the book? Hey, Mali, you have read the book. Angie, you have read the book. Okay. Shama, have you read the book? Okay, Shama is.
Hello, I'm reading the book. At least I've started. It's better than nothing.
Hey, wait again. Yeah, hey. I guess it's better than nothing, like you say. Okay, so the other colleagues will join in. There's a couple of those will join in. I want to respect time and I want to get into it. And let's move. So thank you so much for coming through. We have the honor of having in our midst Dr. Jabulile Msimango-Galawe. I hope I'm pronouncing it correct. She's the founder and MD of Dr. J Business Support and also the program director of MM Business and Executive Coaching at Vets Business School. She's a PhD holder. She's an entrepreneur. She's a statistician. a coach, a mentor, a facilitator, a public speaker, a researcher, and a senior lecturer. And she has been in the business space for almost 20 years and in mentoring and coaching for 5 years. She's a practicing business and executive coach registered with Comensa, Coaches and Mentors of South Africa, and serving as a board member for GSAEC, Graduate School Alliance for Education in Coaching. So thank you so much, Dr. J, for coming through and welcome.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So if you don't mind just giving us a, like a synopsis of what the book is, I mean, we're still going to delve deeper into it, but just a high level, I know there are a couple of people who have not managed to get the book. What is the book about, and why should they buy it?
So yeah, the book is an entrepreneurship book. As you can see, the title says Dear Mr Entrepreneurship. But the way it is narrated as a love story. So I took the risk of bringing romance into entrepreneurship. So, and the idea behind doing that was to try to make it easy to consume, because most of the time you find some of these business books, every second sentence you must be Googling what they are trying to say. So I didn't want people to put the book down to go and Google. So that's why I made it more like a love story, something that you can get into the characters and try to follow the story and be something exciting, that when you read it, you don't want to put it down, or you don't feel the story is so complex that is like, oh, I'll put it away, I'll read it in December holiday or something. So that was the idea. But it is entrepreneurship, but you can take the lessons in whatever way you want. You can take the lessons as love, relationship in terms of love. Those lessons apply as much as you can take the lessons for business in entrepreneurship. They will apply, because what I found was that being in a relationship, I'm a woman, so I relate to it with being in a relationship with a man is similar with being in a relationship with entrepreneurship. That's why I call it Mr. Entrepreneurship. But I striked it off because I didn't want people to think it's a book only for men, as much as also is a symbol that says you can relate to the book in whatever way you relate to it. I relate to the story as Mr. You might relate to the story as Prof Entrepreneurship or as Mrs. Entrepreneurship. So you contextualize it and read the story in the context that makes sense to you. So that was the whole idea behind it.
Why love?
Everybody love stories.
Okay.
It is easy to follow them. It doesn't matter how old you are, you can easily relate to love stories. And that's the experience I had with entrepreneurship. It felt like I was in a romantic relationship with this entrepreneurship. That's why the love story, because my journey felt like that.
Okay. Who's Dr. J? I mean, I know I was driving a long distance and you were being interviewed on radio. So I sort of have a sense, but those who don't have a sense who Dr. J is, who's Dr. J?
Yeah, Dr. J it's a girl who comes from a village in Mpumalanga, small village called Mahushu. Next to Hazyview, those who go that side to Kruger National Park, not too far from Kruger National Park, the Numbi Gate side. So that's where I come from. I grew up there, did my primary and high school there. Only got to leave the village when I had to go to varsity, which I went to do my BSc and my MSc in the Free State. Got two girls, beautiful girls that keep me going. And yeah, and then that's me. My name is Jabulile. It means joy. I'm a very happy soul. So if you get to know me, I don't like being around sour people and mourning people. I like being happy, and I like to follow my name, and that's me. That's in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know we have a couple of people from Mpumalanga in here. I know, oh, she's gone. She was here. Yeah, we have Miss Kumalo, who's from Kwandebele, I think. But yeah, okay. So let's get into it. So I'm gonna start with the general, book questions about the book itself before we get into the content, of what's in the book. So why the book? Is it an offshoot of your PhD paper, or you were frustrated? There was a book you were looking for, you couldn't find. What came about? What gave rise to the book?
Yeah, so the book is it's got a bit of my PhD in it, but very little of it. But what really made me write the book, it was failure. So you'd be surprised to hear that failure can make you write a book. But the failure and the scars that I got out of that failure made me write the book. And why I wrote the book, it was for me therapy. So it was my own therapy. Instead of going to a psychologist, I decided I'm going to do my own therapy. And that therapy was for me to relive the experiences, the painful moments, the exciting moments that I had when I started my first business that went up in flames after about 6 years. So first round of that therapy was doing my PhD. But after I've done my PhD, I felt I was not fair to entrepreneurs because entrepreneurs don't go around reading PhD theses. So I thought I need, in that process of therapy, one of the things I want to achieve is to help another entrepreneur, because there are mistakes I made that I felt were stupid mistakes, that if I had somebody that knew the road or that has walked the path before me, some of those mistakes, I think I would have avoided. And then that's also how my mentorship business started, because it was, to me, be that person that you hoped you had when you started the business that you didn't have. And I felt the book will give me a bigger reach than the classes I teach and the talks that I do, that if it's a book, it can get to more entrepreneurs. Who knows? I might save some people some therapy that I had to go through. So I thought, let me give it a shot.
So are you saying to us that had your business succeeded, we wouldn't have Dr. J as Dr. J?
Nope, you wouldn't have me, because the me that you see now is the me that came out of failure.
Yeah.
Because after that process of failure, you go to some process of discovering yourself. Yeah. Because you ask yourself a lot of questions about your intelligence, about your competence, and you lose confidence. And there's a lot of things you lose in that process. Yeah. So I had to go into this journey of trying to discover and understand myself. Who am I? What's my purpose in life? And what is it that I really want to do in life? Yeah. And that's how this Dr. J came in. I don't think I would have done my PhD if I didn't fail. Maybe I would have done it in something different, because I wanted to be a medical doctor. Maybe I was going to go and pursue that. But after the failure, because I looked at this 90%, 80% of entrepreneurs that fail, and my question was always like, I'm part of that 90% because I failed. And what is the reason? Now we're all that stupid that we can't figure this thing out. And then that PhD was me going to go and find the truth, to say why all of us, the 90%, are failing in getting this thing right. And I was sure that when I'm done with my PhD, I'll have the answers. Trust me, I still don't have the answers because there isn't an absolute answer in terms of what will make you as an entrepreneur succeed. Because I can do exactly what you do, Doc, and you succeed and I fail and vice versa. So there's no absolute equation. There's no absolute formula of success.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that's got too many moving objects that if you meet somebody who says, I will tell you what will make you successful, just run. They are lying. Nobody. We all figure it out as we go. And my PhD was that journey of figuring out, and all that got confirmed was that nobody knows. There's a lot of things that can help you understand the journey, but nobody knows for sure what will make your business succeed or fail.
I mean, I can relate to that because when I was working and I wanted to leave, and you touch on it as well, I wanted to leave corporate and get into entrepreneurship. I was so scared. So I kept on postponing. And then I said, maybe I need to join MBA. So if I join MBA, I'm definitely sure then I can jump. Oh my word. It's the same. You know, you do these things, you finish and you still see dust. So I can relate to what you mean when you say, you know, the answers, you come up with your own story. You come up with your own tool bag or toolbox as you go along. So I can relate to that. But thanks to the failure that you are here, because I think this is quite an important book. Thank you so much for writing it. It's quite an amazing book. I mean, as I was going through it, I could also relate some of the advices that you are putting out there. So I mean, this question comes back over and over and over and over again. And there are those who maybe they're thinking, maybe this entrepreneurship thing is not for me. And I've heard people say that they are entrepreneurs, I'm not an entrepreneur. And I think you have done some good work on trying to answer this, but I want to explore it further with you. Are entrepreneurs born or are they made? I know it's not a question that I should be asking, but I think it's a question that still needs to be explored, more deeper.
Yeah, it's a very sensitive question because those that claim to be born, they get very emotional thing as a born entrepreneur. So because they want to claim that space and make it theirs, that we are born entrepreneurs, you guys, give us space. I don't believe there's such. Yeah. I believe that all of us, we are born zero, empty. As much as all of us, when we are babies, we can't walk, we can't talk, and we develop those skills as we grow. And I think entrepreneurship is exactly that. We develop all these qualities and all these things that are needed for us to be able to handle entrepreneurship based on exposure, based on people around us, what we see, based on people who mentor us and all that, and that makes us. But because some people get exposed to those things too early, that they can't tell when exactly they picked up those qualities, then they tend to think when they got out, I always make it ridiculous. I say when they got out of their mother's womb, boom, out, I'm an entrepreneur. Yeah. But it doesn't happen like that. Sometimes you get exposed too early that you don't know when you had started having the qualities that you can easily think that you were born with it. Obviously, there are certain characteristics or level of development that when you have it will make it a little bit easier for you because you are more comfortable with maybe certain levels of risk and those kind of things. And that will make you easily think that you are the special one who was born an entrepreneur. But I believe anyone can be an entrepreneur, but you need to be intentional about it and you need to know what you need to be that entrepreneur. And when you know that, then you expose yourself to things that will help you towards that. You go to training, to talks, you get a mentor, you start practicing it, and then you become one. Yeah. And one of the things that I like quoting that says, when you study, for an example, to be a medical doctor, when we are done, we are a medical doctor. When you study to be a physiotherapist, when we are done, we are a physiotherapist. But when you study to be an entrepreneur, when we are done, you are not an entrepreneur until you start doing it. And only then you become the entrepreneur. So it's not a born thing. It is an exposure, a doing thing, an intentional thing, a developmental thing. And I know those guys who claim to be born will kill me, but we can argue about that.
But I mean, from where I look at it, it's always, there are things when you're born with certain, it's like talent, certain things come easier for you, but that doesn't mean because certain things come easy for you, then you'll be successful as an entrepreneur. You still need to be made. You still need a mentor, a coach. You still need to understand financials. So yes, there are those who, they are risk averse, but because you're risk averse doesn't mean that you're not born as an entrepreneur. So I always believe, and I like what Professor Yunus Mohammed says when he says all of us are entrepreneurs. If you look at Homo sapiens, we didn't have a job that we went to. We all were self-sufficient, and self-sufficiency, he defines it as being entrepreneurial. We had to go out there, find ways of fending for ourselves, finding food, finding animals, and that for him, says that we are entrepreneurial. So I believe everybody is entrepreneurial, but obviously there are those who are, they want to explore more, and there are those who are saying, maybe not.
Yeah.
Last question for me, Dr. Tela, before I hand over to my guys, and this is my favorite. I have other questions, but I don't want to take Malisela's questions. So, because I know he was like, so I know to them down. So for me, my favorite question is, please share for us a story of what really happened for you to say, this is it. Where's my CV? I'm going to look for a job. This is not working for me anymore. What happened? And how did you feel as you were going through this? Maybe I need to go back and divorce this, because you have a chapter on divorce, and divorce Mr. Entrepreneur, and maybe look for something else, or maybe go back to school or whatever. What really happened? Because I find that most of the time we don't discuss when entrepreneurship goes wrong. We always discuss, then I went here, yes, it was hard, but I knocked on, and then eventually they said yes, and I'm a multi-billionaire. And we know that's not really the truth. Before you get there, you had so many challenges and so many failures. What is that one failure that shook you to say, you know what, I'm cutting my losses, it's not working. Maybe let me try another avenue.
Yeah, it was, So I had this business that I started in 2004. And initially I ran it part-time. I used to work for Eskom as a statistician then. So I ran it part-time, and as it grows, and I will employ people, and then they will run it for me. But they were not doing it the way I wanted it. They started stealing and all that. And then I decided to go full-time. Anyway, I was also bored at Eskom because there was no growth and nothing much then. That was before load shedding, so I'm not responsible for load shedding. So what happened then during that time, like when you leave employment, we are used to a certain standard of living. I was a professional already, so earning a certain salary, having a certain lifestyle. But when I went now full-time in entrepreneurship, I did not adjust my lifestyle. So that I allow the business space to grow and be able to sustain me. So I tried to keep the same lifestyle with a small business, and those things were not adding up. And there were a lot of mistakes in the process during that time. But what made me close it and decide that I'm going to go back, look for a job, was when now I was owing the whole world. I couldn't pay anybody. I couldn't get any funding anymore because I couldn't even pay the loans that I had at the time. So everything got to a standstill. And what added to that frustration was that at that time also I had a company that was a partner that was looking to support me as an ED beneficiary. And then we went into, they joined in, they bought shares from the company. I stayed with 51%, and then they took 49% so that they can get their points and stuff. But as the process go, because when they came in already, I was already struggling financially. So when they came in, they put in money, and I was in a hurry to get the money so I can get this business moving. But what I forgot to do during that time was to make sure that everything was signed and agreed upon. So what happened was most of the things that were signed down were things that were benefiting them, but they were not anything that was signed in terms of the debt or the liabilities that the company had already when they came in. So those things stayed in my name. I had surety and all sorts of things that I signed for. So I still owe those things. So things went wrong when they wanted to bring more people, wanted more shares, and then things went wrong and that relationship didn't work out. The mistake also, I wanted the 51% at all costs. They wanted more shares at all costs, so nobody was willing to compromise. And then I ended up left with 100% of my business that had a value of 0, and they walked away. But in that process, there were court cases and all sorts of things, and I couldn't run with the same company name and stuff, and that complicated things. So, and that just made the business that was struggling even worse. And then I got to that point, I couldn't pay anybody. I couldn't service the orders that I was getting because my credit lines were closed and everything was just at standstill. And now every call I got was about me owing somebody. I learned how it feels like to have a debit order bouncing. I knew how it feels like to get summons. I knew how it feels like to have people calling you and telling you you're gonna get a judgment because you are not paying them. And at that time, you've got no means of paying them. So that started affecting my health. So I started getting sick. I started having migraines. I started being a zombie in general. So I'll sit with you, we'll be in the same room. You can talk all your stories, but I hear nothing. And one day I went to see a client, and when I got there to see the client, I was still in Cape Town at the time, so the client was in Worcester. After seeing the client, I drove all the way opposite direction of going home, thinking I'm going home, and it was not clicking in my head that I am not going home. I think I drove about 200 k's or so before it could click that we are going the opposite direction of going home. And that's the day I started saying, I am losing it, this thing is not working, and I don't even have money, but this thing is hard, and I don't even see the benefit. And that day, that's when I started sitting down and I was like, I'm going to close this thing. I'm going to start life afresh. And because I had no ideas anymore how to make it work. So what was the point of sitting and you've got no ideas, you can't innovate anymore. Your brain has just stopped working. So that was the point where I said, it is enough. I cannot handle it before I lose it and find myself admitted in some mental institution. Let me just close it. And then that's when I closed it. I left Cape Town. I started a new life. I changed my cell numbers. I ran away, but some came and got me from Joburg. I had to go and settle all those debts and stuff, but it was tough. So I had to start afresh. And that's when I went for my PhD. And then when I got to Joburg as well, then I got a new job. And then I started building my confidence and building my life again. But at some point, I realized I love this entrepreneurship thing. But I decided, what is the model that works for me? That's when I decided to go in academia and still run my business, because in academia, they allow you. Then I could do both. But in that way, I'm managing the risk because I could feel that mentally I couldn't handle the stress that I had to deal with then, and thinking that I've got kids and all that. It was just not, it was not just, it was just not working. I was going to lose it, and I didn't want to lose it. I got kids to take care of. So that was the point when I call it a name.
Okay, so how did you feel emotionally? What was going on? I mean, like, as all this thing is happening, emotionally, what was going on in, not in your mind, in your heart? Because your mind will say, no, we can do this thing. In your heart, what was going on?
No, it's I got to that point where I didn't even know how I was feeling about it, but I was hurt, as I said, that that's why this was part of my therapy, the PhD, and writing the book, so that I can get to to take out all these things that I had to do it, relive it and deal with it at once. But yeah, it was, it makes you feel a failure, because at the time also my level of understanding of entrepreneurship and of things was very limited. So I saw myself as a failure than seeing it as part of the process of getting to success. So I lost a lot of my confidence at the time. That's why even after that, I struggled to get a job, because I had no confidence. I didn't think I was worth anything, because how can I fail to run a small business? So those were the things that were going on in my mind and made me feel that I'm worth nothing. Yeah, it hurt. It cut very, very deep. I'm still dealing with those bandages and keep changing them. But yeah, but it's a process. You don't recover overnight on such a thing, because it was like 6 years of my life trying to do that. And then after that, you have to call it a day. After I spend all my pension money, all my credit cards, everything that I had, I put it in that business. And after that, you have to make peace that this was not it. It didn't work. I take the lessons. I'll go and try another one.
Even 200 Ks. Oh my word.
Yeah.
And you are thinking you're going home, and you're going to Gauteng.
Yeah. I thought I was going home, and I see the boards, I read them, but they don't register. That the boards are not saying you are going to Cape Town. They are saying you go in the opposite direction. Wow. And that's when I knew that I'll end up causing an accident or something, not even realizing, because it's like I'm there, but I'm not there.
Yes.
Kind of a thing.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. Let me give other kids a chance. Malisela, I know you have been bugging me. You couldn't wait. So she's here.
Hello, Dr. J.
Hi, Marcela.
So your book now was so real. Like, it was one of the realest things I've actually read, because I always say that, or I like saying that, entrepreneurship these days is painted as what the West thinks entrepreneurship is. You get an idea, tomorrow someone funds it, and $1 billion just like that. And it's so crazy. And I always talk to Dr. Rush as well to say, but Dr. Rush, I hear all of these books, but from a South African context, what does it mean? Because what we see out there in America and what we see here in South Africa, it's not the same, or maybe it is. It's just that we've never really seen. But I really, really, really liked your book. I remember at one stage, I think it was like 11:30 in the evening, and I sent Dr. Rusha a message asking her a question. I'm like, no, man, it's impossible that, why isn't, I think I was reading the chapter on the funding and everything, and I was like, no, man, it's impossible that we can struggle like this and there's money out there that people can be supported, But a lot of what you said was so real and true. It sounded like you were renting in this book to say, Mara, when entrepreneurship, I don't know why I even trusted you, but, and all of us go through that when we start, I've been also, like, for instance, building something on the side, and it's been taking forever. But for me, it's that hope. No, it'll get there. And it just keeps on. It feels like something is just like pulling you back. But I had a question. I think from the start of the book already, there was a few questions I had, and one of them was, and this was more around what you had written on your academic paper, but when do you become an entrepreneur, right? Can you maybe elaborate on that? Because there's many things that you mentioned in there. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And some of them I was just not sure as well. But for you, never mind research, but for you, what is an entrepreneur? Is it someone that is already doing it? Is it an idea that you're trying to get out there? Is it when you get your first sale? What is it for you?
I became an entrepreneur, but I didn't know that I was an entrepreneur when I became an entrepreneur. because I grew up in a family where my parents were always selling. I didn't know they were entrepreneurs. All I knew is that they were selling. So when we grew up, my mother used to knit a school uniform. She used to sell that. And later on, when we grew up, then we will sell vegetables. When we come back from school, everybody had their pack to go and knock at doors and sell vegetables. I didn't know that was entrepreneurship. We were selling because our parents said go and sell. My father had always had two jobs. He was a school teacher, a principal, and he was always a taxi boss. And that's what I saw at home. That's what I was exposed to. So selling became a normal thing that people do. And when I got to even high school, I was always selling. Got to university, I was always selling. So wherever I was always selling until this concept government started talking about it a lot, entrepreneurship. Then I was like, oh, this is entrepreneurship. And then I started to understand it. And then I realized, Musi, I've been an entrepreneur all this time. Obviously, initially because of parents, not because of my own doing, but I've been doing this thing. Because what is entrepreneurship? If you look at the first part of the book, I went a bit deep and defining it because there's always arguments as to who's an entrepreneur and who's not an entrepreneur. But I believe anyone who can come up with an idea and take that idea and package it in the way that they can profit out of it, that person is an entrepreneur. Obviously, then if you go in detail and more academic, there's different types of entrepreneurs, there's different levels of entrepreneurs where you can also find those entrepreneurs who are more on the growth side of things will argue that those small business guys who keep the same size company forever, they are not entrepreneurs. If you are an entrepreneur, you must grow and those kind of things. Those are different levels of being entrepreneurial and being innovative. But I believe if you have started something for yourself, if you came up with an idea, whether it's a new idea you discovered or is an idea that was there, you repackage it, I believe that you are an entrepreneur. It goes for me as simple as saying the mom at the corner who saw that people around the street need tomatoes is an entrepreneur because he saw a need and he went to fill in that need. But then those who tend to be on the tech side and building, growing businesses, they say, no, the mom on the street is not, but it's different types. If you go academic, they'll explain it as survivalist, opportunity driven and those kind of things. But I believe all those guys are entrepreneurs at different levels. And that's what an entrepreneur is for me.
And then just a question on top of that as well. Do you think that the lingo, as you said, people in the tech business that are building big big organizations think they're more entrepreneurial than someone at the bottom there. But do you think that people get lost in this lingo of, oh, I am an entrepreneur, instead of actually just, listen, they are seeing an opportunity and I want to grow this opportunity and I don't know how to grow this opportunity, but I still have it and I've started. Now, do you think people just get lost in that sort of semantics of, yes, I'm an entrepreneur or I'm not an entrepreneur because I haven't done this yet?
Yeah, I think people do get lost. And the reason I don't like this thing of saying there are people who are not born entrepreneurs, because how you perceive yourself determines what you're going to do. If people define you or you define yourself as not being an entrepreneur, you're gonna close your eyes from seeing opportunities that can help you do something about them, because your mindset says you are not. So you're not gonna look for them, and even when they are there in front of you, you're not gonna see them. That's why I prefer the storyline that says everybody is an entrepreneur, because the minute I start thinking I'm an entrepreneur, like I'm in academic space, I've got a lot of my colleagues who teach entrepreneurship and all that, but they don't see themselves as entrepreneurs. And they sit with the skills they have, and all they do, they teach students in class. I take that stuff and go run a business on the other side, because I believe I'm an entrepreneur. So what I believe about myself dictates what I do and what I see. And the minute you see yourself as an entrepreneur, you're going to see the opportunities, you're going to see the problems that you need to solve. When there's a problem, you're not waiting for somebody to solve it. Like there was a problem, entrepreneurs are failing. I got into that and was like, I'm going to start a mentoring company and I'm going to mentor other people and make them pay me for doing that. Why? I see myself as an entrepreneur. I can take a problem, package a solution, make people pay for that. So how you see yourself is important. If you see yourself as a small business, you're going to stay small business. If you see yourself not an entrepreneur, you're not going to see opportunity. So how you see yourself matters. And this lingo makes other people want to own this entrepreneurship space and exclude other people because they feel they are special. They got a touch from God for them to be entrepreneurs. Therefore, everybody else must stay away and they're entrepreneurs. We can all be, and the cake is big. We can all be, and we can all make it as an entrepreneur, as entrepreneurs, obviously at different levels.
I like that. I really like that. And it reminds me of what they always say about how an economy of a country is built by business, by private business, more than it is by government, because all of those small businesses, as small as it is, it adds to the economy and how the economy grows. Yep. So I like exactly what you mean. And then there's a question I had on, you mentioned the 9 things to do before quitting your day job, right? And number 1, you said, be willing to fail. Now, obviously, no, I'm guessing a lot of people don't go into, and maybe a lot of people don't go into entrepreneurship thinking, I'm going to fail, and basically that's probably what you also went through when you first went in, and can you maybe just give us an example around how someone would think, okay, I must go in thinking it's not the end of the world if I fail here. What's the difference between that and saying, you know what, I'm putting 110% in. And the thing is, sometimes 100%, 110% is, as you went through, credit cards, owing people. And you also mentioned like when to stop and when to quit, when to divorce, basically. But when do you go in with be willing to fail and knowing when you're like, you know what, this is my limits? Do you set limits before willing to fail? And you say, okay, I fail when this happens? Or is it more of a, just go in, try your best, almost go through a meltdown and then say, okay, no, this is it? Because I can imagine there's different levels of quitting and failing to people.
Yeah, it comes down to your risk appetite and your resources. If I've got parents who are millionaires, I can afford to go in a business that needs a lot of capital and go all in. If that goes well, my parents will support me or my parents will fund me until I make it and those kind of things. But if I'm coming from a family where my parents are waiting for me to support them, they've got nothing to eat. I've got kids I need to support, they've got nothing to eat without me. Then that dictates in terms of what it means to going all in, because I have those considerations to make. That's why I always say to young people, don't rush to marry, don't rush to get a bond, don't rush to get that. A lot of other people around you, it's just you. And you can deal with that just you, because then that gives you space to fail. But if you do what we did, you went in, you get kids, you get married, and then after that you say, I'm going all in. It changes the dynamics of the game big time, because it does not only affect you. And now is even deciding when to quit, you are not only thinking about the business, you are also thinking about the other people around you that you are affecting. So I always say to people, sit down and do a proper analysis of your support system, of your resources in all aspects, and decide the model that will work for you. Do I want to leave my job 100%, go and start this thing full-time, all my resources there? If it fails, it's okay, I failed. Or because of your context, what is good enough for you is to start this side so that if this doesn't go well, you still don't affect too much of the other people around you. And funny enough, when you read some research in some of the people who have started and ran successful businesses, research claims that those people who start their businesses while they are working and using their salaries to find their businesses, they tend to, in the longer term, have successful businesses than a guy who drops everything and go in there. Obviously, it's not going to be the same for everybody, but those are considerations. That's why I always say in that chapter, I emphasized a lot to say, all of us, our context is different, and you need to be honest and be fair to your context so that you don't go 1 month and you are back because you didn't think it through in terms of what you're going to need, and be realistic that this thing that I think is going to take a year to work, it might take 5 years before you see a cent. And being realistic about all those things, which we went, nobody told us. I thought I'm going to be rich in the after I started it in a year or so, and I got poorer after I started. Because you will get poorer before you get rich. When it comes to entrepreneurship, especially when you don't have, you have to use your own resources, which is normally the black context. So those are things that makes you decide, do I go all in, or do I side hustle until a certain point, or do I get other people to run for me until a certain point? So all those things, you need to think about it. And also one of the most difficult thing to do is to decide when to quit, because you get married to this thing. It becomes, it's like a woman who's abused by his husband. You can tell him, leave, this person is going to kill you. It's like, but I love him. Oh, you went to hospital last time, you almost didn't come back. And she says, but I love him. And there's nothing you can do when he says that. But if this person does his own assessment and understanding of what these things means and how long it can take and all that, then it helps you in terms of deciding, now it is enough, it's time to quit. But the thing that I always say to entrepreneurs, because they always want you to tell them, this is a definite sure thing that when you quit now, you are not making a mistake, you're quitting something that maybe will have worked. When you quit with that knowing that maybe I was not supposed to quit. And that is the thing you have to live with when you decide to quit. Till today, I still say maybe. But it was time for me to quit because my health was compromised and other things. So it's not a straightforward thing. As I say, there's no absolute answers when it comes to entrepreneurship, when to quit, when to go all out, and when to side hustle, and all that is things that you have to deal with within yourself and struggle with until you win. I always say, you will only know that it worked when it works. You can never know upfront. So you can never wait and say, I'll only get in if I know it will work. Then you will never then be an entrepreneur because you will never.
Just one more thing, not necessarily a question, just a statement, and then Dr. Rasha, and then you can take over. I remember we read this book, Shoe Dog, of Phil Knight, about Nike and how Nike was started. And one of the things that actually jumps out when you mentioning when to quit and or when to go into full-time as well, or how to side hustle, it reminds me of that book because he also, there's no shame basically in having a side hustle, because he actually only went into Nike full-time after a long time of hiring one person and that person driving the label to where it could grow across America. And he was still a lecturer, met his wife. And I really do think that there is no shame in having a side hustle and what people say is you're an entrepreneur or not in that sense, and when to stop and when to start as well, because of the fact that as long as you're solving someone's problem, if it's big enough, eventually, as you say, you only know that it will work when it works. Then you know, okay, this is really working and it needs me 100% of the time. Let me go in. So I like that. I really like that. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Malisela. I had to get you out of the way because otherwise I was not going to hear the end of this thing. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Angie, you are next. Thanks, Angie, for coming through. Kagiso, I know you are with Warkemang, Mr. Dipoko there. Thank you for coming through. Maseko, Dombia, I've acknowledged. Oh, yes. Mesbo Toma, thank you. Babu Kunene, thank you for coming through. Angie, you are next.
Yes. Okay. Hello, Dr. J from Botswana, all the way from
Hi,
Botswana.
Angie.
Got your book based Botswana. Okay. So I just want to say it's very raw. Thank you for that. It's very raw. It's very personal, and it's very emotional. I grew up like you, hustling. My parents hustlers, and only later I learned that there was a term, like you said. Oh, that's the term. But yeah, it was like a norm, right? But it's so emotional. What you were saying about also how you reach your point, and sometimes you get to quit, and you invested so much. It's very hard. It's very tough. It's very emotional. It takes a toll on you. You feel like a personal failure. So yeah, I've been there quite recently. Last year, probably, November, I dropped one of my hustles, my main hustles, because I felt like also it was time for that. And it's tough. It's really tough. And I never in a million years I would have compared entrepreneurship with marriage, to be honest. Like never. I would have never imagined. So as I was reading it, I was like, oh wow. And a lot of things made sense. You know, I've been married for 12 years. And but one of the things that you're doing in this rawness, that you are raw, is demystifying the concept of entrepreneurship, as we say, because in social media is idolized, is idealized. You know, everybody apparently becomes millionaire in 2 weeks, and let me tell you how. And this is the life of an entrepreneur, and flashy, and everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. And I see it. I come from Mexico, but here in Africa particularly, I have seen everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, which is good, but there's so much behind it, right? That unfortunately we learned the hard way. So one of the first things that I loved, and I actually started preaching to my own daughter, when you say this, this acrostic is like fail, what fail means, the real meaning of fail, right? Which is first attempt in learning. I remember that particular day that I read that page, my daughter has said that she also wants to do a cupcake business. Yeah. And then she tried to make her cupcake and the recipe didn't come right. And she comes and tells me, okay, so I shouldn't open my business then because the recipe didn't come right. And I said, it's the first attempt that you do. So I told her about the same word that you use. It's your first attempt in learning, right? I also loved page 23, and that really touched my heart. When you are saying, you are writing your letter and you say, you promised me flexibility, that I would be my own boss, because I think that is the best thing ever. Lots of money, fame, independence, control, blah, 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 right? I fell in love. We all fall in love for that. We all fall for that. But we see a man with no flaws and pretend that we don't see the flaws. And then our heart gets broken. We have a lot of expectations. So from that first chapter, it was really, for us to really think twice and really, what are the expectations? Sometimes the expectations are way too high and the reality hits differently, right? And then I'm gonna go to the next chapter where you say more about getting to know the person that you're marrying. Yeah, but I found it interesting that you say, okay, am I gonna get into the opportunity or not? Am I gonna? And no, you don't necessarily have to know the person, but you have to know the basics, right? Because you don't marry the person on the first date. I guess nobody does that. I think that's yeah. So, but it's true. At least when you are courting or you are dating, you get to see the not the deep part of it, but you really try to understand who the person is, and then you have to have some faith. Well, I think it happened to me. I came to Mexico and I didn't know anything. It was my first time in Africa, married to an African. So it was a big step, like leap of faith, because I already knew something about my husband, right? And I had to take that leap of faith. But my question comes here. because now I'm comparing it. You're comparing it to marriage. I'm comparing it to marriage as well. When I married my husband, I already had an idea of what I was looking in a husband. Yeah, you have like some sort of guidelines of Mr. Right. First of all, I wanted him to be a godly man, fear God. Second, I wanted him to honor his parents, perhaps. I want authority and parents. And I wanted him to be wise in finances, which all of them, they clicked, and yeah, here we are 12 years later. So yeah, and I'm not saying it has been a smooth ride and perfect ride, right? Like any marriage, but the basics were there.
Yeah.
The question now goes to you. It goes to you. So what would be those, perhaps, even though the ride is not gonna be easy, pink and all easy, what would be those guidelines if somebody comes and tells you, how can I find Mr. Right? What should I look in Mr. Right? What are the kind of things that I really, for me to go for that opportunity? I hope it makes sense.
No, I get you. I get your question. It's a very tricky question because the basics differs in terms of the industry, the complication of the kind of business you want to get to, and those kind of things. I always say, if you're going into a service industry, for an example, where you are not going to be manufacturing stuff, where you have to do prototypes and do production lines and those kind of things, it doesn't require a lot of capital. You can afford to learn as you go and fail on the road, because then you don't have too much to lose. But if you are to go in an industry where you have to spend a lot of money upfront, then the basics becomes a little bit higher level than the basics. You need to know a little bit more. You need to do some analysis, do some research, understand the industry, to see what other people have been doing, what are competitors doing, what are they not doing, and those kind of things. If I can make an example, when I started my business, it was a stationery business. And when I looked at what other stationery businesses were doing, they were the big companies that were selling stationery, Waltons and them, that were like established, professional, and they were national and all that. And my aim was, I want to get there. And then on the other side, I looked at the guys who were selling from the back of their buggies and all that. And I was like, no, those are not professional enough. I don't want to go there. So I'm going to start in the middle. But the mistake that I made was I didn't ask myself why there's nobody in the middle, why there's the back buggy guys and the big guys. And I found out in the journey that the reason there's no one in the middle is because the margins when you're in stationery are too small. If you are professionalizing the business, you have to go big for you to be able to make up and make profit. If you are not gonna go big, you have to go very small so that you don't have high overheads, because that industry, the margins are controlled, they are very small, and you're gonna be fighting both sides. The big guys are going to beat you with price. The small guys also are going to beat you with price because they can drop as much as possible because they don't have overheads. The big guys, they'll beat you because they buy in bulk and all that. But I didn't ask that question. So those are simple, basic things you do to understand the industry, why those who are already there are doing things in a certain way and are not doing it in a certain way. You might find that it is a gap, it is an opportunity that you can exploit, but you might find that there's higher risk in that gap. That's why there's nobody there. So those are kind of basic. I always emphasize, do research and understand the industry, because the dynamics of the industry is what is going to kill you. The other things you can work around with, but the dynamics of the industry, the competition, the volatility of the market and all that, you need to understand that. And more than understanding that, check the industry, check your technical skills and all that, and get to understand whether you'll be able to do things yourself. You need to get other people. So there's a lot of things that are called basics, but the basics change depending on what industry you are getting up to. But I went blank. I didn't study the industry. I just went and learned. Stationery, you don't need a lot of money. What can be difficult in selling stationery? When I got in there, I find out that just selling a pen is so complicated because there's a million of types of pens. Everybody comes with that little description that changes the whole bit. And that pen, you're gonna make 20 cents a profit after we have done all this understanding of the product and all that. I did not do my homework in terms of understanding the industry. Research is key. It's one of those basics where you just get to know whether the husband is abusive, the history of being abusive, and there's any issues of mental health, those are the issues you deal with at the alcohol. You want to know them before you get in.
Yeah, correct. So it's research, it's benchmarking, and as you are saying, asking a lot of questions. They were also there in the book. Yeah, asking all the questions, right? Even the most being very detailed in the questioning. I also read some time about the wonder of being a kid. Well, I have a 4-year-old as well, and it's always why, and then you answer the question, but why, up to 8 times, right? So yeah, I think that's how you can get to the bottom to see if that person is Mr. Right. Well, Mr. Entrepreneur. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
Thank you, Angie. We wish you another extra 12 years of your husband and another 12 years of Mr. Entrepreneur. Thank you so much.
Yes. All the best.
Awesome. Thank you, Doc. Chairperson, Vena, come through. I haven't seen you in forever. Thank you for joining us. We are honored. Vena? Okay, I don't know if Vena is there she is. There she is.
Am I audible? I hope you can hear me clearly.
We can hear you. Go for it.
Oh, fantastic. Look, I'd like to make a few comments and maybe, put a question to Dr. Sis J, as I fondly call her. And maybe I should start by introducing myself. You call me chairperson. I should then say I'm the chairperson of Literacy for Life.
Yes.
We're an NPO that promotes the culture of reading. We know the importance of reading, and that is the basis for education. But moving right along, how I got to Mrs. J was through her daughter, who's an author. And I was quite excited as I was starting to read the book that she acknowledged Dear Lulama, that I love so dearly, because, it's so important for us to write our stories as Africans for Africans. And I was quite excited to read Dear Mr Entrepreneur, because it's so frank, it's so, and I echo the sentiments that it doesn't beat around the bush. Where you made mistakes, you acknowledge the mistakes, Sis Jay, and I think it's quite an important read. I also want to say, a few comments as a reader, that is quite cleverly written, in a sense that I'm not sure which genre it belongs to. It's a romantic book, it's a business book. It's a motivational, and I dare say it's even a spiritual book, because I knew you as a mom. I got to know you as a mentor for many master's students, but I really got to know you better through this book. And hence I say it fits really well as a bio, and thank you for that. And lastly, as a form of my question, is on the journey that you took writing, tips you have for future writers, and if you look a bit on the journey of you writing this book, what was the inspiration? How did you even develop the idea? Because I think, with the community, the colleagues that are here, I think some of us will like to jot down some ideas. I think it's a first of a kind. A business book turns into a romantic book, but that also has so many Dr. Roche, thank you. That's it from me.
Yeah, I'm not so sure who's lost who. Are you there, Chairperson?
I am here.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. I don't know if Dr. J, did you get the
Didn't get
question?
the last part.
Oh, okay.
We lost you the last part. I didn't.
Yeah,
hear.
we lost you at the last part, Vena. Do you mind?
The last part.
The last part of the question.
The last part is really a short one. Yes, can Dr. J take us through her journey of writing? What inspired the idea of writing the business book into a romantic book?
Yes.
And also tips for future writers.
Yes. Dr. J,
Okay.
do you have a special recipe for writing? You wake up at Sunday morning or evening and you have conflicts and then you start writing 200 words, and then what's your writing process?
Yeah, I know. Thanks, Sven. It's lovely to see you. Yeah, you know, the people always ask me, how long did it take you to write the book? And I always say, I don't know. And it sounds strange that how can you not know how long it took you to write the books? Because I started writing the book in 2018, but because I didn't have a structured way of doing it, I will write and forget about it. And then one day I will go back to it and I don't even remember what I was writing and keep on doing that. Until in 2021, then I decided to put a structure on it. And then I will break it down into the chapters and have dates as to when I need to finish which chapter. And that helped me to move. The worst thing that I did, which was good for me, was I also started publicizing the launch date for the book before the book was done. And because of that, it was my first time writing it. I didn't have the experience and understanding of how long it's going to take after I've put a full stop to say I'm done. And I realized that the writing of the book actually starts when you say I'm done writing, because now you must interact with the editor and the story. This one doesn't make sense. So it took longer than I expected. But I was committed that the date that I put for the launch, I am not changing it. I am not going to go on my social media and tell people and say, guys, I'm canceling the launch date because the book is not written or it's not done yet. So I was not going to do that. So that forced me to be disciplined and keep on my schedule. So if you want to write a book, put a date on it, publicize it. It's going to stress you, it's going to drive you crazy, but it's going to force you to write it. Because I meet a lot of people saying, I want to write a book. I want to write a book. And 3 years later, they're still, I want to write a book. It's not going to happen until you commit it. You've got something to lose and you put it out there and make sure that people start asking you, when is it coming? When is it coming? Then it will force you to move. Writing a business book as a romantic book, I was sitting and thinking, how can I make this book different? And how can I make it easy to read? And when I started thinking about my journey as how it felt, the way the journey felt, it felt like I was in a relationship with a man. Then I was like, what if because at some point when I will think about all the challenges that I went through, I will like, I wish entrepreneurship was a person and I can talk to him and then tell him about all these things he promised me and never delivered and all this. Sometimes I'm excited, all these things I've learned out of it and all that. But then it came out that he was not a person. He was not there for me to talk to him, but I wanted to talk to him. So I was like, why don't I make him a person? So I decided to make him a person, and then I started talking to him, and then before you know it, then the book was there, and then I made it letters because I was like, I'm talking to him, but at the same time, I feel like he's not there, he's not hearing me, you know? So then I was like, then there's this appointment that we're gonna meet one day, and then you're gonna read all these letters that I keep writing to you, and you're gonna respond to it because I've got so many questions to ask you. I've got so many things I want to vent. And then I made him a person. So that's why Dear Mr Entrepreneurship, because I felt my journey was like a romantic relationship, and I felt there's this person who's entrepreneurship that I want to talk to, and he's not there, so I can make him. So I got back to my childhood of imagining things, and I imagined him, and I made him, I put him there. If you can see in the cover page, there's a chair, he's sitting there. He's very complicated, you can't tell exactly how he is, but I'm talking to him. So I made him a person, I made him sit down and listen to me, and I'm writing letters to him because he's not talking to me. But then hopefully then this was kind of like a date where he sat down, he has read my letters, and then he's responding to me. So that's how it got to becoming a romantic and letters and making entrepreneurship a person. Most people still correct it. They think there's a grammar mistake in Mr. Entrepreneurship. It was supposed to be Mr. Entrepreneur. It's not grammatical wrong. It was intentional because people will be like, oh, she's got a PhD, but she can't even write correct English. Why Mr. Entrepreneurship? And then they go look at it. But then when you read the story, you find out, no, there's no grammar mistake. It is Mr. Entrepreneurship. So I took the concept, personified it, made it this person, and then I talked to him. That's how it came about.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Wow, my
much.
question is answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I hope this is not the last time I see you here.
The pressure is on.
Yeah, just because Dr. J is here. Otherwise, I'm going to have to invite her every time so that I can see her. Dr. J, so on, guys, please feel free to ask questions. Don't be shy now. You know, these guys, they're always talkative when I'm with them. Refilwe, Benji. They're always talkative. Now they're being shy. Mr. Gunen, come on, guys. So there's this part, you know, on the book, and you talk about when did my business start failing. I read this part and I had goosebumps. I had to stop and say, oh my word, I've seen this happen so many times. So when did my business start? I'll just quote this paragraph, start failing rather. Just a short story. My business started failing while I was busy getting awards and winning competitions. When everyone was praising me for doing well, the process of failure was unfolding behind the scene. Don't let people's praises, winning competitions, being on TV and radio, or being a speaker everywhere fool you. That is good, but it does not necessarily mean that you are successful. The devil is in the detail that no one else sees but you. Don't let those things make you take your eyes off what matters. Wow. Okay. So I read this. I'm like, okay, you know, you go through some of these things and someone is able to put this in words. You know, it's such a schizophrenia thing, right? Because here you are, people are celebrating you, but on the other side, you know the real truth. This thing is not working. You are being fake. So I was talking to an entrepreneur yesterday. He's like, you know what? I've been postponing doing this entrepreneurship thing for a very long time because of fear. I'm so scared. And what would you advise someone who really wants to do this? They've been postponing writing a book, as Vina was saying, or starting a business, and they're so scared. How do you overcome failure? Fear. And I guess it's fear of failure anyway, but how do you overcome fear?
The honest truth is that anything you want to do that you are not familiar with, that has got uncertainties, you will never be at the point where you are not scared at all. That's why many people will tell you, do it scared. But I say, do it scared, but don't do it stupidly so. You can minimize how scared you are by doing a little bit of analysis and minimizing the things that you are uncertain about, or minimizing the unknowns. But because you will never be 100% of what's going to happen, you will always be scared. So if you are waiting for the day where you are not going to be scared, then that day is not going to come, because there will be no day where you get into unknown territories and you are not scared. But it becomes a thing about self-awareness and about being conscious about the fact that I am scared, and start asking yourself the questions, why am I scared? And start answering those questions. It's one of the things I talk about, that don't avoid to ask and answer the questions, especially the negative questions, because what will make you scared? You'll ask, what if it doesn't succeed? Answer it. What if it doesn't succeed? What are you going to do? And those things helps you deal with the fear. At the same time, have a plan B. And some people and entrepreneurs normally are like that. When you say, okay, you've got this idea, is brilliant, it's gonna fly. What if it doesn't fly? And then they will go to quote motivational speakers and say, there's nothing that gives me pleasure like doing something when people think I can't do it. But it's not about that. It's about making sure for yourself that you answer the questions, because if you don't answer the questions that makes you scared, then when that happens, that's when it kills you, because you didn't answer the questions. When I got into business, I never asked myself the questions, what if it doesn't succeed? Because when that question came, I said, what? You crazy, I am going to succeed. But answer, what if you don't succeed? Because if you answer it, then you've got something that when it happens, it doesn't caught you by surprise. It's like people who don't want to answer, what if you divorce? What's going to happen? No, we will never divorce with my husband. And then divorce happens, they are fighting and everybody's dragging everybody to court, because why? You did not want to answer the question, what if we divorce? Because it is easier to answer it and deal with it before divorce than to answer it and deal with it when now there's emotions involved, divorce is happening. It's the same in business. Answer it at the beginning. What if your business fails? What are you going to do? What if nobody gives you funding? What are you going to do? Because those answers are your plan B. Always have a plan B. It's not like we are planning for failure. It's not like we are planning for divorce, but those things are not 100% in your control. So you have to answer those questions. And when you answer them, it minimizes the failure. I mean, the fear.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I think it comes to the whole thing that, who's this? Daniel Kahneman talks about in Thinking Fast and Slow, that there's always the emotional, fast, error-prone approach, but there's also systems too, which is analytical, slow, logical. And you find that as an entrepreneur, you're always bouncing between system 1 and system 2, where you have to be, you need to be driven and motivated, but at the same time, you need to also be a thinker and calculate certain things, and don't just say it will work out, but calculate, if it works out, how much does it make? Is this worth your while? Blah blah blah. Because I always find that entrepreneurs always find they always are in system 1. They're always in cloud 9. This thing will work. I'm gonna be this person. I see my name here and everything, but they forget to also be logical at the same time. And it's always that balance between the two. Yes, you need to dream big. You need to be unrealistic, but at the same time, you need to be realistic as well. So it's this, bouncing between these two systems.
Yeah. And that combination is always tricky to get, because people tend to be, from their personalities, aligned more to one. So those people who are on the autopilot system tend to not to want to slow down and do the thinking. And the guys who are thinking never get to start anything because they don't want to move the other side and get to the autopilot one and start moving. So to be aware that there's two systems helps you to start thinking, am I too much on the one which will disadvantage me, and start getting the balance. No textbook will tell you what's the right balance. You figure it out as you go, and you're going to get it wrong many times. But one day, I always say, the very things that makes us fail are the very things that makes us succeed at the end, because you do these things so many times that you develop the skill and the intuition to know what is the best place, or what is the best space, or what is the sweet spot. So you do many times the wrong things, you will eventually get to the right one.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Since my guys, I don't know, Dr. J, why they are so scared of you tonight. Maybe it's still January. I don't know. So I think we'll just leave it here since no one is raising their hand. Last question. What is a question that I should be asking you and I'm not asking you? And what's your answer to it?
You should ask me as to what gave me the courage to go to unknown territory and combine romance and business in one book.
Yes, that's a good question. Yes. Please.
And the courage came to the same story that I'm talking about. I asked myself, what if nobody likes it? What if it's off? People get this, like, what is this girl doing with romance in business? We want business. And I said to myself, it's my Facebook. So I can afford to fail in my Facebook. So if nobody loves it, if nobody cares about it, they feel I'm soon edition is coming, and then write it the way the customer wanted it. But I had to test the market, and I had doubts so many times because I doubted people like.
Sorry, I got kicked out there. All right. Dr. J, thank you so much.
So I think Dr. Rush, something happened to Dr. Rush's feed.
Can you guys hear me? Hello?
You're talking about romance from a you're back. So as I was saying that
Because